Welcome to Framework. I am John, one of the hosts of Framework, and with me, as always, is the other host of Framework, Al. Welcome to you, Al.
Hi, John. Would you say that you are escorting me through this episode, or am I escorting you?
I think I'm probably escorting you. I believe I'm the Joel to your Ellie in this case, because I have played the game The Last of Us, the original game. I haven't played the sequel.
I thought you were going to claim it just on dint of being a little older than me. But,
I really love to bring attention to that.
Oh. It's not a generational difference. We're definitely of the same cohort.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. I am the wide-eyed waif in the Last of Us territory, because I have not played the game. I have just seen the first 3 episodes of the HBO series, which getting very good reviews right now.
Yeah. This is early on. 3 episodes in on The Last of Us. It is a 9-episode run, and well, honestly, I was not quite sure that we had enough to talk about yet, and then I watched last night's episode, number 3, and I was like, "Oh shit, we absolutely do. This is a pretty important show, a pretty significant show."
It is. It's going to be 9-episode run, but also they've already approved a second season to cover the second game, I believe.
I believe so. Like I said, I've only played the first game. I believe before the second season comes out, I will have played the second game. I'm pretty impressed, man. Pretty goddamn impressed with this show.
Well, it's it's not my favorite thing ever in the world. I wouldn't say I'm totally obsessed with it. It is sort of a high class problem to have, I suppose. But for people like us of our generational cohort and our specific interests, it does feel like this is zombie apocalypse stuff that we've seen. You and I, dozens or 2 dozen times.
I'm quite tired of it, frankly. I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it is HBO. They spare no expense. I mean, granted, I saw another elaborate very well rendered post-apocalypse show on HBO like a year ago with Station 11. That was a really good, apocalypse one too. This feels familiar to that, but it's got zombies, obviously, being the main difference. And I do like that the fungal infection tweak to the zombie apocalypse gives it its own flavor a little bit. It's a little bit grosser than your average zombie apocalypse, which is plenty gross.
Yeah, I'd gotten bored with zombies, classic variety vanilla zombies. I've been like, yeah, decaying corpses, been there, done that, and this addition of fungal growth and what do they call it? Cordyceps, the disgusting little tentacle. What the hell? The things.
The mind control fungus.
Yes, the mind control fungus is disgusting and upsetting enough to absolutely feel like a new thing and a new way of approaching these, at least in visual terms. And they have cool different things that they do, and it seems somehow quite a bit worse than being ripped apart by a horde of undead corpses, which is no small feat.
Yeah, the rotting, walking bloodthirsty corpses of the Walking Dead, or the Game of Thrones White Walkers or whatever. Like, I guess those are they're supposed to be viscerally and disgusting, but I guess I'm kind of numb to that. Just the rotting flesh aspect of it at this point. I've killed so many hundreds of thousands of them in video games over the years, and everything that it doesn't do. But the writhing fungus tentacles are just they just turn your stomach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's revolting and effective, and it feels more real. It feels like a thing that could actually happen, and I hate that I'm now saying like, yeah, I actually could believe in this zombie apocalypse, because it's one of the stupidest things. The people who believe that we were really going to have a zombie apocalypse that exists out there because of The Walking Dead and shows of that type. And now I'm like, yeah, this one seems credible. It does. Yeah.
Or at least I care less about credibility even than just it's got a little bit of unique flavor to it. So that's what I appreciate about that. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing to appreciate about it is the core performances and relationships are pretty good.
Yes, very, very. Pedro Pascal, he's excellent, huh?
He is a very good actor. Here's my hobby horse I've been on lately. Is he kind of miscast in this?
No, this is
Because
exactly the like, you know.
I don't know, man. I mean, I look at him, breaking out on Game of Thrones, and the sort of swashbuckling, omnisexual poet ninja guy that he played there, that
Sure.
is so charismatic and elaborate. And it feels like between this and the Mandalorian, he's getting typecast into this gruff father figure escorting children through a sci-fi, hostile landscape. But I'm like, does the taciturn dad stuff play against his strengths? I think he can be so charming.
As sort of a weathered older gentleman, a little past 50, I think this is exactly the avenue he should be pursuing, and an incredible niche to carve out for himself. Probably quite fruitful financially. Well, of course. I mean,
Oh well, yeah. I mean, and the Mandalorian seems like the cushiest gig you can get as an actor. Do you think he shows
yeah,
up like 2 days a year to that set,
yeah.
gets a Disney-sized paycheck for it? That's awesome. Good for him. I like, and again, like, he's doing a good job. I'm not saying he is not a problem with the show. I kind of like, but I don't know. Just is that playing to his strengths? I'm curious. But again, the version of this topic
Mhm.
I'm most curious about is when I don't think the actor is really right for the role, but they're so good that it kind of works anyway.
Well, that's fair enough, but I do think he's quite adept at these roles and
Yeah.
suited to them. I think he's relatable. I think he is. You want to see him kind of soften over the course of the thing, which he does in both stories. Not
Mhm.
sorry, spoilers for Last of Us. He ends up caring more about Ellie.
Yeah, no shit.
So I think he's actually very good casting for this, and maybe he's bringing Mandalorian baggage to this that is helping that along in some sort of subliminal way.
He's getting to play things here that he would like would be natural to play more in the Mandalorian, but they just aren't gonna let him do too much there.
Well, what is he? I mean, like I said, he's over 50 at this point. He is a very handsome man, obviously,
Mhm.
but like, what roles is he missing out on by taking these? Like he's probably had as meteoric a rise as anyone from Game of Thrones, which is saying something. And I mean, yeah, I think so. He's probably doing better than anyone from Game of Thrones.
I mean, yeah, I guess weirdly, Game of Thrones is a weird show, but there was so many like standout performers and performances on that, and none of them really took off. I mean, like Dinklage got a huge boost out of it early on, but you would think that I would have seen Nicolaj Coster-Waldau in more Hollywood big budget productions after he gave such
Oh, what
incredible
happened
performance
there?
for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the Stark kids, none of them have been in it. I mean, I guess the one became Jean Grey, but
They're all fine. None of them are exceptional.
yeah.
Amelia Clark, fine, not exceptional. Richard Madden, yeah. Cersei, Lena Headey. I mean, some of them are just, kind of ended the run of Game of Thrones, a
Yeah.
little bit older than Hollywood likes to cast. But yeah, the young cast, I feel like once you get them out of Westeros, they maybe some of their limitations are exposed. I don't know. I don't want to say that necessarily, but
Well, I'll say it then. I think the big part was just that when you get down to the big two, Kit Harington, Amelia Clark, it turns out not enormous ranges of those
right,
performers.
right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, everything else is downstream from there. Anyhow, we're talking about a different, brutally depressing HBO prestige production.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also the other big thing to talk about here is that this is a video game adaptation, which
Oh shit, Ellie is also a Game of Thrones. I
oh yeah,
just
she
realized.
is. Of course, she is
Yeah.
a Game of Thrones alumni. Yeah. But this is the first time, I mean, by most people's accounting, that a video game adaptation has, well, certainly, like maybe not just been good, but gotten this patina of respect and the prestige treatment that you're just not going to get with Prince of Persia or whatever.
Well, yes. I think that what these first 3 episodes of The Last of Us have sort of definitively done is prove that you can make great movies or television out of a video game. And that doesn't even mean that the rest of the show is great. It could fall off. That could happen fairly easily. I mean, I know where the first game goes, and if they execute at the level they're doing right now, I think we're going to be just fine. But with that knowledge, it kind of doesn't matter because they've kind of proved their point already, that these things can be excellent.
Yeah, we have proof of concept here, even if
Yeah.
the next episode falls off and the show starts sucking.
It seems unlikely too.
Yeah.
But they've done it. It can happen now. And there are specific reasons why I think The Last of Us is suited to this.
Yeah. So here's a question, I guess, is when you're talking about video game adaptations, that is such a broad category because there's such a,
Well,
we're getting this. We're also getting a Super Mario Brothers movie coming out in the next
right.
month or two. And the difference between adapting a 2013 video game that was designed from the start, it had to play sort of like an interactive movie, versus adapting an arcade cabinet from 1984 that was designed to have essentially no story, or just to adapt Double Dragon is just a completely different beast. And this thing that already had an eye or two eyes on being cinematic when it was created as a video game.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean that's the thing about Last of Us. It is among the most cinematic video games I've ever played. It is. I mean, there's a lot of moments of it that feel like you're sort of doing an interactive Children of Men. Quite a bit actually, narratively, but also just that single camera kind of over the shoulder. Well, okay, so like you take the opening of Last of Us, the game. It's even more kind of visceral and spectacular and really
the game version is.
Yes, it is because it's one shot. You are playing as Joel's daughter, which if you've seen the marketing for the game, it's fucked, and it's pretty impressive. It's cinematic in a way that only a video game can be, oddly enough, because you're just thrown into a thing. And well, I guess you could do it as a movie, and that's the thing.
You're controlling her, right? So you can look around sort of wherever you want.
Exactly,
but it's a locked-in camera, sort of over the shoulder type thing.
Yeah, There's not a lot of places you can go. You're kind of getting rushed along. Right. Not a lot of things you even want to do. It's kind of just because you got things falling and blowing up behind you. Right. He's just sort of following Joel and his brother around and getting in a car, and then 20 minutes into that, the little girl that you're playing is killed, and then you get the title screen of Last of Us. That's how the game starts.
I had to take a break from after the 30-minute opening of the first episode. Like, I put it on pause. I think I watched an episode of Justified or something, and came back to it like the second part, like an hour and a half later. And yeah, so I guess, that is a testament to, I guess, what a sissy I am, but also just how effective that opening is.
Yeah, just the knowledge going in, I think, like you've seen from the marketing that it's Pedro Pascal escorting this other girl around, and then you're introduced to his daughter. You're just like, oh shit.
Yeah, she's not making it. Similar to like, I know that the Anna Torv character is not on the game box. So,
right.
Was not shocked at how that played out. Ultimately, as much as I guess they're going for the we overcast this role that is ultimately going to be off the show pretty early to try and mislead you a little bit. But I despite not having played the game, I am aware enough of it to know, we're with Joel and Ellie for the duration here.
I think it does a really good job of playing off your understanding of marketing and your expectations from marketing in both the game and the show. Actually, it's cool. It gives it sort of a doomed quality from the start when you meet characters like that.
Well, it is. It's I guess a potential liability for the show.
Could be
going forward as a horror product, that it essentially has two characters that are central to it that we kind of know. Maybe like Joel could end up dying to protect Ellie, but it won't be till the end. Like, I know I can tell you that much without having gone to Wikipedia. And so that can create, it can be a bit hard once Anna Torv's gone. How many sequences of them sneaking past zombies am I going to be really like on the edge of my seat for, if I know that there's plot armor here protecting these people.
Indeed. I mean, that's going to be a problem with any zombie show. I mean, well, no, it's not, I guess. Walking Dead's whole thing was like, anyone can die at any time. Oh, Stephen Yeun died this episode. Yeah, I guess that could be the case. But, Daryl's not getting killed. Like the fan favorites are going to stick around. Yeah.
It went the Game of Thrones route. It did the just giant sprawling cast, which meant that any individual was a bit more expendable. There are two individuals here that are not expendable.
Well, I can tell you this without spoiling anything. There are plenty more characters that appear in the story, and not all of them get killed. That's not how it's structured. Yeah. So
the last night's episode, for example, the Nick Offerman, when the other guy, I don't. People know him from other stuff, but I haven't seen him.
Apparently he's on the White Lotus. I don't know myself.
But that I guess on one hand, it is just, okay, here's two new supporting characters and they will be dead by the end of the episode. But that is such a misleading way of describing it, because it's not at all like what I was just saying. Like, it's not that they join up with Joel and Ellie to do some zombie creeping around missions for one episode and take the loss, to be red shirts. That's a totally different approach that they took there, and, incredibly effective.
Well, to tell you, my fear with this show was that, the game is so cinematic. I mean, you play the game through, it's about a 12-hour game experience. The action scenes are fairly realistic in the sense that you're never up against more than I don't know, 5 or 6 of these things at once, the clickers, as they call them. And it's all stealth, it's all being very careful and over the shoulder camera that would translate extremely well to film.
Sure.
As is the scenes and the interactions. It's all like it feels like you're playing a movie, The Last of Us. And my fear going in was they're just going to shoot the video game, and it'll be a let's play of the video game. And I would say the third episode pretty much I'm not worried about that anymore, because it's a complete departure from how the game presents those characters.
Interesting. I see. I would have thought that my understanding of Last of Us being such a cinematic story is that, maybe that you could do a let's play version of this that would function just fine as
it would, but it wouldn't. It would not feel. It would, if you hadn't seen the game. I feel like it would feel a little irrelevant to me if it was just a filmed version of the game. And it might work. I mean, it would work based on the moments when they do that in this, especially for people who had not played the game. But it wouldn't feel exciting to me if they were literally just filming the game. And it seems like they know when to do that and when not to.
Can I ask you a very specific question about the game? The clickers.
Yeah.
They're called that because they make a distinctive clicking sound, right?
Sure.
Is it like the exact same sound from the game that they're using on the show?
I can't answer that. It's similar for sure. It's been, I don't know, at least 6 years since I played the game. So, I'll be honest, I don't remember anything that happens after where we are up until the end, which I remember very well. So I'll be remembering things as we go along here, I'm sure.
I feel like that's a huge part of the sort of creature design, is getting that distinctive sound, that you can hear emanating from the next room over and have that.
Oh yeah, totally.
Put you on edge.
That's all over the game.
Yeah. You
walk into a dark, basement or subcellar or something like that, and then you hear a click in the distance. You're like, okay, it's a stealth zone. That's that's just how it is. Okay, I'll pick up a brick and I'll get behind the bookcase and kind of peer around and wait. Stealth mechanics, they click in at that point, and yeah, I'm sure they can do versions of that, but oh man, how they handled those things in that second episode, that was pretty cool. It wasn't just a duplication of the game either. I was very, very pleased with that.
I mean, that did have the feeling of, okay, this is a level. This was a sequence that you had to do. But I do like that, I have confidence based on nothing that I can really grasp tangibly, but just, I guess, the creative people here, that it's not just going to be a stealth sequence every week, like a big, one shot set piece of them creeping around a group of zombies. Because,
well,
there's a way of doing that, like with action shows, where it's like, okay, it's certain, we're 34 minutes into this hour-long show, that now is the time when Navy SEALs, the show, has to have a shootout.
This is always my fear about a video game adaptation, especially in the television medium. These action scenes, video game, when you're playing a game, like a platforming scene, or any shooting scene, any like Mass Effect would be an example of a game that I've always thought should be a television show. We'll talk about that at length at some point, I'm sure. But like, there is a problem inherent in there, which is that, are you just going to have like a cover shooter sequence in every episode?
Right.
Like, it's structured for perfect cover shooter sequences, just like The Last of Us is structured for a lot of stealth combat with zombie sequences. And it is a problem to solve in adaptation. It's one Last of Us has not really had to address in 3 episodes, because it's still establishing its visual language and how the episodes work. I'm optimistic about how they're going to handle it, because we've seen a lot of zombies. You can do versions of this, and for example, the events of this 3rd episode, that in the game, that whole plot line, most of that played out with stealth zombie mechanics.
Wait, the Nick Offerman plot
yeah.
line?
Okay. So let me tell you what happens with that character in the game.
Okay.
You meet him when you're playing Joel, and and escorting Ellie. You meet Bill, the Nick Offerman character. He is a survivalist, basically the way you kind of we meet him in the show, I guess. With his, he's got a lot of booby traps. He's got a little fiefdom that he has created, and he lives there alone. He's an old crank survivalist, and he knows Joel kind of grudgingly. You eventually will find the corpse of his friend. It is implied that they were lovers, but it's also, you find the body hanging, and there's a suicide note, where he's basically saying, "Bill, I actually hated living with you, and this I'd rather die than go another day around you." So they're just sort of miserable old fucks, and yeah, he doesn't know what happened to him.
180 degrees.
Yes,
it's what we got in the show.
Completely different. I believe W. Earl Brown plays Bill in the game, if memory serves.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, it is pretty great. It's a great sequence in the game, actually. It's a really, really good part of the game, and it's completely different than what they put on screen on HBO last night. So that was great. That was really, really cool for me to see them pull that off, and this incredibly effective story, like sort of anthology style within the apocalypse, that they were able to pull that and even conceive to do that, made me really, really optimistic about how they're going to handle the rest of this show.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I don't want every episode to be a sort of art film reverie, bookended by zombie survival stealth sequences.
Well, the second one was pure just zombie shit, exactly. Gross zombie shit. Yeah.
So I hope we get a little bit more of this, but maybe keep the 60-40 at least on the zombie horror stuff as like. I mean, I know I said that some of that stuff's played out, but also like that's your show. Like, don't run away from what your show is, what your world is. Run away from the fungus zombie creatures.
I mean, yes, but with the benefit of having played the game, I can tell you that the emotionally draining stuff, the narrative that kind of like kicks your ass is what's effective about that game. The stealth is a little bit ordinary, honestly. Like, the stealth it's fine, it's good, it is functional. It's the characters and the narrative that really makes it a superlative game, and the cinematic presentation of those things.
One thing, I mean, the struck by the opening episode is after that sort of flashback opening sequence, where the things are first going to hell. Well, even there, you're not. I guess you get to get a zombie attack there, right? You got the old grandma eating people and chasing them around. So that was cool. But for the rest of the episode, when we get to the quote unquote present day, in the quarantine zone, like, I don't think we saw any more zombies in the post-apocalyptic future for that first episode. It's all the real monsters are us stuff, that whole trope. But the fact that there's enough humans left in this post-apocalyptic wasteland that conflicts with other humans and, the raiders or the survivalist people or whatever, is something else to lean on for tension, for action, for suspense. That doesn't have to be all mushroom head zombies all day, all the time.
No, I mean, yeah. Well, look, this is how Walking Dead lasted for 12 seasons. You know, that they were like, well, the real monster are us, and there'll always be interpersonal conflicts, and always be new things to discover and explore, new communities, and how they dealt with the thing. And that's well, I mean, it's any sort of zombie story that isn't just a tower defense, you know, like Assault on Precinct 13. It's going to be somewhat a journey. A traveling across a period of distance, and you know, and meeting up with new people and how they're dealing with the thing, and that's Last of Us. That is it. There's a lot of times this feels like The Stand to me. You know, just seeing you know, people going through the ruins of modern America, you know, and just sort of reflecting on what it all meant, and you know, and what has been lost, and what these
can
things
we rebuild, and what should we rebuild.
Yeah, so it's, in a way, I don't know, I always feel that Last of Us is more of a post-apocalypse story than it is a zombie story, even though the mechanic is there all the time, obviously, to fight zombies. But it's
I mean, a lot of zombie stories are that too, though. I mean,
well, sure, I guess. I mean, they go hand in hand, obviously, but it has more in common with Station 11 than The Walking Dead.
Yes, I would say so. I mean, not just from the, you know, it's on HBO, and
right,
you can see like the creative hand. I mean, the guy who made this, or the showrunner for this, was previously the showrunner on Chernobyl, which was another, you know, apocalyptic overtones to that show as well. You know, I realized just recently, speaking of Chernobyl, you know, our favorite character on Andor, the like buddy of Cyril the bad guy, who's like the sort of kiss-ass Scottish guy.
Yes, okay, I remember him. Yes.
Well, I thought I had never seen him in anything, but he was the lead coal miner on Chernobyl.
Oh,
you know, sort of very memorably.
Chernobyl face, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's horrible. That's
Chernobyl face and penis, you know. Sorry,
he looks like a cast member of Chernobyl. He doesn't have a Chernobyl face.
No. Just got that Chernobyl dick. All right, that's a total derailment. I apologize. Do you have any other show specific thoughts before we just talk about some video game adaptations here?
Oh no, I mean, I'm kind of taken aback. I didn't expect to really get as excited about this as I did, because I played the game and I was like, yeah, it's a good game. Should be fine. I was, you know, I'm mostly curious to see how they handle it as an adaptation. It's so far, that's the most exciting thing about this, is that it is so far nailing the adaptation task by doing a good job of using it when it is called for, and diverting when they have the confidence to do so. So that seems tough, and it's something that no one's really been able to pull off as effectively. So, you know, it seems tenuous, but on the other hand, they seem to have established it very well. I'm very excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I guess maybe, again, maybe there's some protection built in from the show becoming too bogged down in video game crap, because the game itself was sort of aiming to be a movie from the start, like I said.
Yes. I mean, that makes it easier in a way, you know, but it also makes it, I don't know, it's the thing I was saying. It feels like it would be inherently a little bit less creative. It'd be filming a Let's Play, and I think either they've done good enough of a job that that's not an issue, or B, they have successfully proved that doesn't matter. If the thing is effective as cinema, and they just make it as cinema, then it still works.
Yeah.
Either or.
So, you think we're going to see a run on prestige video game adaptations coming from movie studios and TV studios in the near future?
I think we're going to see some. You know, I think it's hard. I think you got to have the right property. I think it's going to be difficult to make this work. I mean, it's not a given. And I mean, the list of truly prestigious video game titles out there to pull from is it's not a deep bench.
No,
exactly.
So, but let's try and
Mhm.
game out some of these to see
Well,
if we can.
well, God of War is happening. That has already been
Okay,
greenlit. That is, they're making a God of War show,
a
presumably
God of War
based on the new
show.
movies. Yeah,
See, that's one that it cries
seems.
out to me. It seems like that should absolutely just be a Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah, I don't know how the hell they're going to do it. Yeah, like that one, as opposed to The Last of Us. I'm just like, well, that doesn't work. What are they thinking with that? That seems
Yeah,
impossible to make that work. I mean, if you played the new God of Wars at all, I know they're
no, I haven't
PlayStation
played any of the God
exclusive.
of Wars.
Well, it's interesting. Those are the original series. The Greek set games are
Mhm.
they are purely action slashing 300 style. Kill as many monsters as you possibly can. Get
Yep.
combos from killing more monsters kind of games. The new ones are very narrative driven, very cinematic, but also have quite a bit of monster killing in them.
I mean, I've seen that evolution just from like the trailers.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. God of War is definitely kind of aiming itself to be more like The Last of Us as a
mhm.
game. And so I assume that's what they're trying with the movies or the show. I
It
think it's going
has
to be
to
a
be.
lot harder to pull off than Last of Us. Much harder.
Yeah, I would think so. But again, I haven't played that game, the new one with the kid.
Yeah.
So it's
God,
I,
it
I
really
can't
is
say
Last
much
of Us.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but it's more action than stealth, right? That's the
Oh, totally. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I
You
don't know,
have
maybe
you have
that's
a thorax that that you go around and
right.
fling it at giant trolls and shit. That's the whole game. So that'll be hard. I don't think it will work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about some other ones with the caveat
Mhm.
here that if we were picking out the video games we'd most like to see made into movies, we're just to set aside all the BioWare games because that's like
Of course.
my first five choices are all like Mass
Yeah.
Effect. I hope will be a show that would be a great show. Dragon Age will be a great show. We'll talk more about Knights of the Republic soon. That's
Mhm.
a whole thing. I haven't played Jade Empire yet, but God, Mass Effect and Dragon
BioWare.
Age would both be fantastic shows. But they also are so cinematic that it's kind of a little more easy to picture how that would work. In
Right.
terms of what other games you might see, another thing that when I was trying to think of like other candidates for adaptation to the screen, a lot of video games are already like branded from other content too. That like you should adapt Star Wars Battlefront to the to the big
Mhm.
screen. But like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
that's a Star Wars movie, or there's a superhero games that are movies already. So in terms of like original IP that originated out of video games, there's some of the bigger ticket items. There's stuff that I don't think is necessarily great for adaptation. The classics of the old console era, your Marios and your Metroids and your Zeldas. I'm just not sure that there's enough story or character there to really support a long running series or perhaps even a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. I mean, there isn't. Like, and as games have become more cinematic, take Resident Evil for example. They've been trying to make Resident Evil movies and TV and all that forever. And I guess in a lot of ways that's the most successful video game to film adaptation. Just in that
Yeah, it
there's
may have became a franchise
there's
of sorts.
at least 7 of those movies. There's a television show that everyone hated. None of them work for me. But on the other hand, they're not prestige. They never were trying to do that. The interesting thing is the games. The last couple Resident Evil games are entirely cinematic, kind of going for prestige. They feel more like movies than the movies do in some ways. I don't think it's as simple as just 1-to-1ing. But the Resident Evil 7, I believe, is full on just like, what if it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre? It is it's kind of doing a very different thing than what you've known Resident Evil to be. So I guess it could be done. I guess you could make that movie, and it would, if you do it really well and approach it in the way that Last of Us does, as seriously as it does, and duplicate stuff from the game when you want. I mean, I think it would probably have to be a movie in this case. I don't think that one supports a series of television, but like, I think it could happen. I just don't see it happening. I don't think anyone's going to green light that, and I don't think you're going to get the people who want to make a Resident Evil movie are not going to make that movie.
Is it harder to do the prestige version of it when the schlocky version already exists? Is that
Probably? Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to take it seriously if they make a Resident Evil 7 adaptation. They'll be expecting Resident Evil movies.
right? So that's a sort of a subcategory here of movies or of games that they have made into movies that weren't very good, but I think are worth taking more shots at.
Maybe that makes it easier to make it. I don't know, because the IP is so established at this point.
Mm.
And you've made so many of these. So if somebody can take a chance on one, it's like making a 19th Halloween movie or whatever,
yeah, it can be, you can do a bad Friday the 13th movie and you're not going to tank the franchise from it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like in terms of other games that I think, they may not have made the good movie version of yet, but are like worth sort of taking infinite shots at, like always going to be a possibility of making a good Mortal Kombat movie. Like,
yeah,
the basics are there. I haven't seen the Alicia Vikander Tomb Raider movie, but that also seems like, okay, no matter how many times they fail that's still it's Indiana Jones is the concept. So
there's no reason you can't have a good Tomb Raider or Uncharted movie. It's there's no reason that can't happen.
Exactly.
It just hasn't. What's that?
They're making a TV show of Tomb Raider now.
Yeah,
they are.
Okay, there's a TV show of Tomb Raider coming.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge is creating it.
Oh, Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
I did. Yeah, Phoebe Waller-Bridge working. I heard that something about that. They haven't cast Lara Croft, have they?
No, brand new, no casting yet.
Yeah.
Hey, babe.
Is she a Tomb Raider fan?
Are you a Tomb Raider fan? You're not, right?
No.
No.
But yeah, but female Indiana Jones, like that's
come here.
That could always.
But yeah,
and you can always do that.
Well, those three Tomb Raider movies, I think the Alicia Vikander one is the first one that like rises to the level of competence. Not much beyond that, but the potential absolutely is there. No reason you can't have a good one of those, and it should be a movie, not a show. I mean, I don't know. I'll watch a Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Tomb Raider just because what the hell is that? And yes, this is my wife, Amanda. Here, get on the mic, Amanda. Welcome to Framework.
Are you a gamer?
I don't know if I would consider myself a gamer. I'm a Street Fighter enthusiast, and that's maybe as far as it goes.
Really, you're a Street Fighter partisan, huh? That's
big time.
A scholar of Street Fighter, if you will.
So that's one where they did the movie, obviously, with Jean-Claude Van Damme as the guy with the American flag tattoo.
That
on his
is
arm.
a camp classic.
It is.
You will not convince me otherwise. It's a masterpiece.
I was not going to attempt it. But they've also done a bunch of like cartoon series too, right?
Oh, too many. Yeah.
Have you checked those out?
Oh, I've seen them. There was that USA one, that Saturday morning cartoon where they tried to make it G.I. Joe because I don't know, I guess they could sell more toys that way. And then there was the one that was young Ryu and young Ken running around the world as teenagers, and Chun-Li was there, but she was a tour guide, and it was weird.
They did Street Fighter Babies?
Kind of.
The Puppet Baby version of Street Fighter?
Yeah, that was kind of like the closest you get to Street Fighter Babies. And Cammy was there. She was an assassin, but she was weirdly Catholic about it. I don't know. It was...
What? I thought Cammy was like a hardcore Anglican.
I would have thought that too, come to think. Yeah.
I would have thought Blanca was the Catholic boy of them all.
Maybe Scorsese should do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I would love to do a deep dive into Street Fighter religions.
Yeah. Well, Dalsy, my guess, is the only overtly religious Street Fighter in the game.
Super Hindu. So Hindu.
Respectful.
So Hindu that gods gave him powers of imaginary fire.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Mr. Fantastic is stretching powers too. That's the other.
But not because he's religious.
What is the reason
behind
his stretch powers?
Yoga.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
He's just very
so good at yoga.
And there's also the whole issue of he appears to be wearing a necklace of child skulls.
He is wearing a necklace of child skulls.
As most yoga enthusiasts do.
Oh, no. The official story is that these were the skulls of children who died in a plague, and he wears them to remind himself of the fragility of life. Or
noble reasons for those.
Noble reasons.
Wait,
but again, at the end of the day, he's wearing children's skulls.
I was being facetious. You're saying those are canonically child skulls?
These are canonically baby skulls.
My God.
Yeah.
I thought The Last of Us was the bleak video game adaptation.
Oh, no, just scratch under the surface of Street Fighter and you'll find some bleak ass shit.
Okay, so swerving back to some other video games that they've done, but maybe they should take a second swipe at. Did you ever see the Warcraft movie, the Duncan Jones version?
I did. It's not very good.
Yeah. No, it's not. I think that it did some things that I liked. That I thought it had some pretty good restraint about like sticking to the story of the first game, and not like diving right into the like later, more popular era of it, because the first game, as crude as it is, has a decent enough, world building background and some
orcs
high
and humans
drama
they're
there.
Fighting. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and the humans lose out of the gate, which makes for high drama, I think. And it was sort of admirably brutal, I thought, about like it killed some heroes.
The ambition and intent of that film is not the problem.
Yeah, it's the look of it.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that is faithful to the game, and it seems like a big part of the game. And it's sort of
faithful to a fault, though.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you can do Warcraft without duplicating that to some extent. It's such an important part of the experience of World of Warcraft is the aesthetic, and yeah, I don't really care to see that in a movie.
But I mean, I don't know. You could make your own aesthetic, tweak it down a little bit, make it a less cartoony. Make the suits of armor look like something a person could actually move around in.
I'll admit, I kind of don't even like the aesthetic in the game itself. The question again is like, is this what is the purpose? Like, who's going to make a great Warcraft movie? Who's going to? I mean, I'm sure that world, I've dabbled in that game, and I'm sure that the world has massive, lengthy mythology and many stories that have been told within it, and probably some of them are very good. But it just seems like there's so much attached to that as an intellectual property. I just don't know how you make something out of that serves all masters that would be required to make a Warcraft movie. It's going to cost $200 million no matter what. And I just, what the hell movies are you going to come up with that is going to justify that cost?
Well, I guess for a lot of these video games, I just say, well, yeah, just give this to Zack Snyder. This is the stuff he should be doing.
Right. Yeah. He can make a Warcraft movie. That'd be fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He'd probably do it less money.
Large scale, low class stuff. That's the Zack Snyder wheelhouse, I feel. So
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think you could, as a fantasy world, it's as good as the average bear. It's not a particularly excellent one, but it's got enough lore built up around it. You can there's some fun creature stuff there. I just think, yeah, it went a little too faithful to the video game stuff. It made everything look kind of ridiculous, and that was sort of jarring with how bleak sort of the finale of that movie is. That everything looks so goofy, but the story was so harsh in ways. But I don't know. That's one you could do, and you could do a Warcraft show or a movie. I feel like, because
a show might make more sense in that case, but it would also be prohibitively expensive. What with all the orcs. Or I don't know. I guess we can do orcs now on TV. But again, that's another property where I'm just sort of like, you don't need a movie. You don't need a movie. I think that the medium for that is video game, and
okay,
and I think that is okay. Like it's all right if not everything makes a good film or a good TV show. Some of these things belong. Like, you don't need an XCOM show. X was one of the best games of the last 20 years, probably. The two XCOM games. There's no reason to adapt them to another medium.
Yeah, okay. This is a game I did want to talk to you about because I'm obsessed with XCOM 2.
Okay.
Since I had a child, it's taken up like 80% of my gaming.
No, the turn-based strategy game is really good to play with a kid. Yes, because you can kind of put it down, pick it up. Yes.
Yes, you can get up and leave it at any time, and I can also play it on mute, which is helpful. But I was thinking about that too. The interesting thing about that, if you were going to try and adapt that to like a TV show, is that it is a turn-based strategy game, but I think you would have to turn it into an action-based show.
Yes.
That like,
well, of course, it would be such a different thing. The premise and plot and characters of XCOM are marginal. That's not the point of XCOM. You can just do an aliens versus humans show and change whatever you want and not get stuck with the, not bad but not extraordinary aesthetic of XCOM.
There's some fun creature design in it, but
sure.
Yeah.
But like the point of XCOM is the gameplay.
Exactly.
That's what's cool about it, and as such, I don't need that as a show. I think it found its perfect version as a game, and I think that's
there's not enough characterization to it, really. I mean, you have a couple people on the ship, but everybody else, the soldiers are sort of interchangeable and expendable by design.
And I didn't watch the Halo show, but I understand this is a problem they ran into there. Like, you make that into a show, and well, you've taken out the best thing about Halo, that it's a game. Like,
I watched a couple 3 episodes of that one. It had some good design stuff going on, but again, it's that your protagonist there's not really any there is the big problem that you run into there. And that's what I think a lot of these games, especially as you go back older games, the silent protagonist is a big thing. Like there's plenty of RPGs that I loved as a kid. Like maybe the best to a lot of people's minds, the best RPG of all time would be Chrono Trigger, which has a really fun time travel plot line to it. So you get a lot of different aesthetics and different time periods. You can do some really cool, fun stuff with that. But you also have a silent protagonist that is like, you can't just draw. I don't think you can. I don't know. It's been a while since I played that game. I'm trying to think if you could just remove him from it and just have all the sporting characters be actually carrying the story. Probably not, though. And I don't know. I think that creates a hurdle. It doesn't apply to, in modern games. That's becoming less frequent.
I mean, when you get to these big RPGs, like a Final Fantasy game, they tried to adapt that, and the juice is not worth the squeeze. I don't think. Like the expansive canvas is the point of those.
I have one Final Fantasy one that I think would actually make a great show, but I'll get that to him. First, I want to run a couple others by you that I'm iffy about. Okay. Well, we talked about Warcraft, but StarCraft is another one. It probably has a lot of the same issues, and maybe some of the same issues as XCOM. That there is some plot lines there and some characterizations.
I do like the world of StarCraft quite a bit, but it would really have to be its own thing. It couldn't really resemble the game in any reasonable way.
I mean, again, the creature design, like the design of the Protoss and Zerg, sure, or some of the aesthetics of the spaceships and all that, you could do fairly faithfully, I think, and look good on screen.
Yeah, and you could take the general shape of the conflict in StarCraft and create a story within that world. And I mean, I'd be curious to see him try. I'd like to see some Protoss in real, on my screen. That'd be cool. But it would be something. It would basically be it's a completely original story, as far as I'm concerned. It would have to be.
I mean, I think you could take the vaguest spine of the game's plot line. I mean, I like the idea of having a 3-way sort of war going on. That there are these 3 very distinct races going on. That's something that I think I have a sense the later Warcraft games that I'm not into as much. Part of the problem is I feel like they went a little overboard there, and it seems like there's like 6 or 7 different factions now that they've gotten into, and it just seems like a lot.
Trolls, there's blood elves, yeah, you got a whole thing.
And there's an undead, but I like. There's the sort of gray man aliens, and then there's the bug xenomorph aliens, and then there's the humans, and that's a dynamic that I think is fun enough. But maybe it is just fine as a game too.
Well, that is also something I could see getting a subpar adaptation very easily. It could be, sort of like an ABC, like Earth 2, just sort of a mediocre sci-fi programmer that they throw on a network. And like La Brea would be the thing that I would think that would look like if you look at actual
I think
shows
you just hit
now.
on actually. Yeah. I think you just hit on why this is not going to work. That it gets in between somewhere where to do StarCraft you need a mega hundreds of millions of dollars budget, but it's also never going to be a prestige thing.
No,
it's going to be schlocky. So
you would need somebody who really knows what the hell they're doing on a massive scale, who really wanted to devote a decade of their life to telling StarCraft.
Right.
And that's they're not just knocking down the door for that. There's probably a lot of things that would come first. The hell, they'd probably end up working on a Star Trek show. Anyone who would be capable of such a thing. It's tough. I mean, it's a thing where anything is possible technically. The realistic terms of would this actually happen? Is there any conceivable way this gets produced and it's good? I don't know. I mean, there's always the outliers that prove the rule. Game of Thrones, before Game of Thrones, you would never think that kind of show could succeed.
Was supposedly unadaptable. Yeah, I'm just saying, I think that the pathway to that being good is so narrow. I think just when you try and take account for any sort of plausible realities, you're right. The people who are making that, the good version of StarCraft, should just be making Mass Effect, because that could actually be an HBO show. Could be something with more of a patina of dignity about it than StarCraft's, just aliens from Space Marines shooting the aliens.
Those games are excellent blueprints for a prestige television show that runs 5 seasons. Those are a lot of the work's already done there. Those are the ones I would say. Those are the ones. That's where the potential lies. That's what you can do. Last of Us shows that you can do the Mass Effect show, or that's my number one. We're talking about that in the coming, at some point.
Yeah, we're going to do a whole Mass Effect episodes on each of those games, because part of our BioWare whole deal. The other one that I was not as sure about was BioShock, because that's one that people loved as the example of art in video games and so forth. But again, the silent protagonist thing of it, and the big twist that comes, is built around the video gameness of it in a way that I don't know makes for an easy adaptation.
Well, I've actually I've been trying to figure out how you make a BioShock thing forever. Honestly, this has always kind of been in the back of my mind. Is how do you bring that story to the screen? Gore Verbinski tried really hard. Apparently, there was going to be a Gore Verbinski BioShock movie, and he was just like, "It's $200 million and it's R-rated. Sorry," and they're like, "We can't make that." And I think that would have been cool to see. The world is so compelling that you want it to exist on a film. The sort of objectivist underwater dystopia is just cool. It's just cool. My idea, I have a thought on how to do BioShock, and the way is, don't do the game. You do the story of Rapture. Yes.
Yeah.
You do the story of Andrew Ryan creating Rapture underwater, and the rise and fall of it.
That's actually really good.
I think it'd be so cool. Yeah.
I mean, it may skirt the definition of a video game adaptation that we're talking about here, because you're not really adapting the game, but you are adapting the game world. Or I guess that's in the game. The fall, it's backstory.
That is the story,
codices and whatnot. But,
the actual story of BioShock is pretty good too, but I mean, you can't really do that either. Once you finish the actual Andrew Ryan story, it'd be this weird little appendage. I guess the way to do it would then you make the entire BioShock show, which is the rise and fall of Rapture, and then ends with a movie, and that's the game. I guess you could. Do that. But that's almost not important to me. I just want the Andrew Ryan story.
Yeah, I don't mind the whole thing being a prequel to the game that just continues to exist as a game. Because I think it's a better story, so it's more like the game becomes a licensed sort of sequel, or the game feels like a spin-off of the show at that point, if the show worked properly. And that could be prestige-y.
It's a really, you have good, interesting adult themes to explore in that story. You've got good characters, because the story of the sort of revolution that happens in Rapture from unsavory characters, it's bad guys versus bad guys is the actual story there. It's all good. It's all compelling. It's all kind of has an exciting dramatic arc to it. And the world is just so cool. You get to kind of see the world extrapolated and more into. You can see the development of the plasmids. You can do all that stuff, and it's good.
I would kind of love to see you do this and brand it as an adaptation of Atlas Shrugged. then
Yes.
sort of the twist surprise on people is that, wait, they're going underwater? Nah, John Galt's going underwater and it's just becoming Bioshock. It starts out as the first 50 pages of Atlas Shrugged, and then by the end of it has become the prequel to Bioshock.
Well, I mean, that is great. But I think maybe the way this happens is as something that is not either an adaptation of Atlas Shrugged or Bioshock, but kind of something very, very influenced by both into its own thing. And maybe that's what we really want in a lot of cases, you know? Maybe, I mean, obviously that's less likely to get greenlit than intellectual property, but, you know, all things told, like something that is deeply inspired by both those things would probably be my ideal version of it.
Well, okay. So another one that now we're getting into games that I think actually would make good adaptations, and one that is sort of that way that maybe it's more the world than the actual plot is the Deus Ex games.
You know, I'm kind of unfamiliar with them. I got to admit, I'm. It's just one of those things that's like, yep, okay. It's one of those things. It's cyberpunk stuff. I'm sure they're good.
Yeah, that's what it is. Honestly, it's been too long since I played them anyway. I was kind of hoping that you could remind me of some of the finer points. But it's good. It's just a good cyberpunk world, and you could do a cyberpunk show. I'm surprised there haven't been more, frankly. You know, that you could do a cyberpunk detective show, but that's also that can be an action game. It can be a stealth game. You can do a lot of different things with that.
I think the sort of Blade Runner-esque cyber noir television show, I think that's out there and it's coming. I think somebody's going to hit on the version of that works at some point. I feel it belongs out there. You know, it's a thing that should exist.
It is wild to me that we have not gotten the HBO Prestige cyberpunk show yet. That's or whatever channel it ends up on. But you know, as we've gone from gangsters to advertising agencies to the high fantasy stuff, I don't know. We've done some sort of sci-fi stuff. I don't know. Like there's even something like The Expanse. You know, that is sci-fi, and it's at least aiming for the prestige patina, but it's not cyberpunk really. And it's weird that I haven't gotten that particular thing on screen, on the small screen.
It seems inevitable at some point. I mean, I don't know. Have there been failed versions of it that we're just kind of not remembering? I feel like the breakout hit version of it is it's due. You know, I think there's a market for it. I think it's on deck at some point. Somebody's just got to come up with it. It feels like the next thing that could be. You know, and maybe an intellectual property is the way we get there. Maybe if Cyberpunk 2077 had been a success, that would be the thing. You know, that seems like the aspirations they had for that as a thing. I don't know. We go back to Shadowrun, you know, something like that, and adapt that.
But I feel like if we're, you know, trying to play around with this in terms of like mapping out what is the plausible route to one of these things actually getting made, then IP is the route to everything these days.
Right.
Like
right.
That's how everything's going to go. But okay, the other one. So the other, the Final Fantasy that I think would be fantastic is Final Fantasy VI, which you know, going all the way back to the Super Nintendo era.
Right. That one.
But that's when you have a lot of protagonists. It's a really interesting game in that it doesn't really have a main character. Well, you don't have the silent protagonist issue. You've got like 12 characters that you collect that have actual personalities and everything. You know, it's Super Nintendo writing level. So it's pretty broad, but you also, you know exactly who these characters are, even in 16 bits, and the relationships develop over the course of the game, and you could do a whole thing there. There's also a great plot twist halfway through that game, and I think that the ideal format for me there is an animated show that goes two seasons. The first one ends, and I want to be kind of brutal with it. I want this to scar some kids. Like I want to rack up a bit of a body count among those characters at the end of that first season.
So damn many of them. I think you can afford that. Yeah.
Yeah. You can get rid of Edgar and Strago. And I mean, and then the second season is obviously a totally different thing, but I think that could be very fun, very good. And if it has a chance to scar children the way that you know, Neverending Story did when we were kids.
I mean, just getting Kefka on
Mhm.
screen. I mean, that's got to be a big part of the appeal. That's
Yeah.
and that twist. I mean, yeah, I don't see any reason you can't do that as like a 2-season cartoon show on Netflix. I think
Exactly.
that is doable, and I think maybe that's something to take into account is that the scale of these. You look at a video game. In most cases, it has to be huge, but
Mhm.
an animated series that lasts for a couple seasons on Netflix is more doable, and you can do things like a Final Fantasy adaptation in that case.
Yeah. There. I
Mhm.
mean, for all I know, there's already a Star Fox anime that's been running for 11 seasons, but you could do
As
something with that.
likely as not. Yeah.
But all these other, that's sort of the opposite of the spectrum from the Last of Us prestige route that we're talking about, and that a
Right.
lot of these more consciously artistic and cinematic games are already like reaching in that direction. And so to that end, like the other one that I think could be, well, the Rockstar games are an interesting case study here, because the Grand Theft Auto games especially are getting so much more plot oriented and like into character development, but I don't think they work as movies or shows.
I agree. I think the entire point of that, take all the plot out, is to run around, steal cars, and just run amok in the city. When you take that out, it's not Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's a big part of it. The one that does have a story that you could make a movie out of Grand Theft Auto 4's story, I guess, a toned down version of it.
New York one, yeah,
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 with Nico, and that that could be an okay movie. It would be weird. It would be sort of
redundant, though. Like it's just versions of other movies. That's sort of the point of Grand Theft Auto 2. Is just like, here's some Carlito's Way. Here's some
exactly.
other,
It's every gangster movie in a blender. That's what I was getting at. And so you print that in a game form and it's fun, but then you try and revert it back to the screen, and you're getting a sort of copy of a copy issue where now you're, I mean, are you just making Carlito's Way again, or are you doing this weird cartoon version of it that is fun on a game level, but I don't think would be fun as a passive, like watching somebody else do this stuff experience.
I mean, Red Dead Redemption would be my Rockstar pick, but that's the same thing, really.
But I think that one's much better suited than Grand Theft Auto. It is,
for sure, yeah. But it is an amalgam of great westerns. It's all great western moments kind of thrown into a hopper, and here, play them out, kind of stuff.
But because it's less zany, I guess, and it's, I mean, very much the same engine with horses instead of cars, but it is more grounded. You could do, especially Red Dead Redemption 2, just the Let's Play version of that already very cinematic game. It's got a really good story and good characters, and that would be entertaining to watch on screen. I mean, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is pretty much a masterpiece, I think.
Yeah, wonderful game. Mm-hmm.
And it's got a really just good, because a big part of that is because it's got a really good dramatic engine at the center of it. The sort of, the cast of characters there is great, and the disintegration of the gang as Dutch Vanderlyn goes increasingly crazy, I think, is really well rendered there. And over the course of a season of TV, would be a compelling thing to watch.
I mean, I do like the idea of adapting that story. It's tough though, because of, I don't know, it's such a successful series of games, and it succeeds so well as games. And I do kind of like the aspect of that story where it is just like, okay, here's some of your favorite spaghetti western stuff. Here's some Howard Hawks stuff. In that, it is such a grab bag. I think it'd be more noticeable if you try to put it on film. But
you certainly have the same issues there of taking these tropes that you took from the screen to put into a game and then putting them back onto the screen, and does it feel more derivative there?
And there are many game play elements of that, things that are game specific, interactive specific, that are like the best parts of that game. There's a thing that happens at the end of the first Red Redemption when you
sort of switch playable characters, but
no. Before that, when you stop hunting down gang members and you are just farming for like 3 hours, and you've got to this narrative point where you've been robbing stagecoaches and trains and blowing up shacks and shit for hours and hours and hours, and then you get to a point where your gameplay is, now you need to go herd some cows. And there was a moment I had in that game where you're out herding your cows with your uncle and your son, and there is a a stagecoach robbery that is happening on the horizon. Like it is an open invitation to go do some cowboy shit and go involve yourself in this robbery, either help them or help the robbers, whatever. And my choice, as John Marston at this point in his life, was like, that's just not me anymore. I'm going to keep herding my cows right now because I gotta get them in before night or I'm gonna lose some profit off of it. And I made that decision as a character to forego being a cowboy action guy and to go just get back to my ranch and losing the choice to do that. Well, no, I mean, I guess you could just present that and it'd be cinematic too. But but I don't know. I think that almost makes the argument that I was trying to argue against, because that is a cinematic moment that would work on screen.
Well, those games are very cinematic already. That's that they're trying for. They want you to see those cutscenes and be able to see the.
And who's kidding who? I'd be all about like a big maximalist Western thing coming out.
Yeah, I guess part of me is just like I would like to see a big Western show that I guess Yellowstone is sort of that, but I haven't watched that.
That might exist and we don't watch it. That could be.
Yeah. But it's sort of the thing of I want to see the prestige, but sort of actiony Western show done with that giant Game of Thrones budget that HBO tosses around, and that doesn't need to be Red Dead Redemption, but maybe the IP is the best, most plausible route to that in today's day and age.
And I'd forgive them, going astray of the game. Just do the Dutch Vanderlyn gang story, and it can be a new character. I don't care if it's Arthur or John Marston. I don't care. Just do.
I think those are good characters.
They are good characters. Yeah. So yeah, you can do them, I guess. But do whatever you want once you've got the show running. Adapt the game. Don't adapt the game. Do original stuff. Yeah.
That is, I think, one of the benefits of doing this. I don't know if Last of Us is going to take advantage of it exactly, but one of the advantages, I think, of if you have to do IP stuff and you're doing a video game is that it's not a highly respected art form. So you can see people more plausibly going that route of saying, forget the game plot and let's do this.
I don't know. I think the people who are going to be upset by that are going to be the loudest people, though.
Oh yeah,
you did it different from the game. This is a problem Mass Effect would run into. That everyone has such a personal identification with their shepherd that just the act of choosing if it's a man or a woman is going to fucking break half your audience.
Nice. Okay, yeah, you have kind of a point there, but it's also, I think that the appeal of the BioWare stuff, in part as an adaptation fodder, is that there is not one truly canonical playthrough that people can say that Bella Ramsey doesn't look like Ellie or whatever, but Shepard can look like whatever you want him to. I mean, there's the box art, but who cares? And even just most of these games you can play through as a good guy or an evil character, so there's some leeway there. We have a whole BioWare series we're doing. We're gonna have a new episode of that coming out in the next couple of weeks, and we'll get through those in time. We'll go one by one. There's one last thing I want to throw out. As it's an IP thing, and it's sort of a spin-off, but I would love to see if HBO is trying to squeeze out more Game of Thrones content. Do like a movie or 2-movie maybe adaptation of the Telltale Game of Thrones game that they put out. So that game is sort of a sidequel. It takes place in like the 4th season of the show, basically, but you're a minor house that doesn't really appear on the show. It's got a really good just cast of characters and story going on, though. There's cameo appearances, like Ramsay Bolton is kind of an important figure in it, but if you did it quickly, you could still include the cameos from people like Marjorie and Tyrell and Tyrion and Jon Snow that appear briefly in that game. But it would just as a one-off Game of Thrones product, I think you could do a lot worse than that. And also, they released one season of it. They called the first game Season 1, and there was supposed to be a Season 2, but it got canceled and so I never got closure on where that story was going. So I would like to get that from an HBO movie.
A fun game, a very fun game. All those Telltales, though, I think they fall a little into that the trap of of just being a Let's Play adaptation to some extent, because those are so cinematic. The only real gameplay in it is making choices. And if you remove that, then I don't know. I mean, you can probably do an optimal narrative version of that and film it, and it works. But it almost seems,
as games, they're not really games. They're choose your own adventure stories. But I think that's a perfectly good basis for a narrative.
I guess if you take the best version of that and do it, I mean, it would be less exciting to me as somebody who's played the game, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe, but again, not having I mean, it's very much like the Game of Thrones books, I guess, in that you would be adapting an incomplete source material, and the show would have to sort of decide how it ends on its own. Anyhow, that, less likely that one. I'm just saying, if you're that sounds better to me than probably 6 of the 8 potential Game of Thrones projects that I have read about.
Yeah, I'd rather see that than the Jon Snow sequel or whatever that is.
Oh, God, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I don't want to know what happens to that character.
No. Okay. Anyhow, all right. So there's options on the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to keep seeing them. I think these are going to keep happening, like this is just, especially if Last of Us is as successful as it appears it is, I think we're going to see a lot of attempts,
And if Tomb Raider show is a hit, we could see a whole glut of them. I mean,
oh God, yeah. And the God of War is coming, and and who knows what else, somebody's going to try BioShock at some point. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Al. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. We'll talk about Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Absolutely.
In our next video game episode.
Video game stuff.